Hare Krishna. So, until last session, we were discussing about the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna got into the he was lamenting, and his mind is giving different reasons why not to fight, and what will give him the more happiness, something like that. Now, in this chapter, we will proceed and see like his further doubts, no, and how he further loses the balance to the point, he don't know what to do. He's very indecisive. He becomes very indecisive. So, see, as I said, no, Arjuna was a powerful warrior. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purports. Also, many of the gurus, they actually say that Arjuna was the most powerful warrior of the plan on that planet at that point of time. When compared to the other human beings, not the Supreme Lord like Krishna. When compared to other warriors, he is the best among the archers. So, and he is very righteous. He is very positive. He grew up in the guidance of Queen Kunti, who was very virtuous lady, and under the guidance of Yudhishthir, who was very religiosity personified, and he was very powerful. He never had this kind of Hrudaya Daurbalyam. Hrudaya Daurbalyam means weakness of the heart. So we already discussed, right, why this weakness of the heart came into Arjuna's mind is because of different reasons: compassion and concerns for the righteousness in the society. Different reasons. 5 reasons we discussed. So basically, as I said in the beginning, why this doubts and why this weakness of the heart has crept into the heart of Arjuna is because of 2 reasons. Basically, see, if unless a teacher gives a difficult puzzle to an expert disciple or expert student, so that student will learn through that problem how to overcome higher and tougher problems. So the academics or any training session is designed in such a way that gradually the difficulty or the complexity of the situations keeps on increasing. So Arjuna has gone through many many reversals in his life. He was cheated. His family lost all the wealth that he has earned by his own efforts, and he was thrown out of the kingdom. His wife insulted, and his relatives and close relatives were brothers. All his brothers were they are thrown out of the country. So all these insults he has tolerated only for the sake of dharma. Now it's the higher test, and Krishna's intention is he are actually putting Arjuna in that bewilderment stage, so that when a person like Arjuna gets bewildered, then how Krishna brings, or how Krishna counsels him, how Krishna gives, by giving the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna maintains his status, means brings him back to normalcy. So just like if you see, if some a person who is for example, a roadside pickpocketer, he does something wrong, or he does some mistake, some road accident, or speaking harshly with somebody, or doing something mischief, and nobody cares about him, and nobody cares to even note what has happened. But if a person, like very respectable, very highly revered and highly responsible person, just like Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, he did, like he made I heard a news, one time national anthem was singing, national anthem was playing, and he was so tired, he just walked away. And that was scrolled in the news for almost like many hours. Narendra Modi doesn't have any respect for national anthem. But if an illiterate person, or if a person who doesn't have any value, if he does something like that, nobody cares. So it is said that with the position, with the strength comes the higher and higher responsibilities. So, and Krishna wants to give this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to the entire humanity, so that Arjuna was famous all over the world as the foremost among the warriors. He is the most powerful warrior on the earth. And if he teaches this, if he gives the message through making Arjuna as an instrument, then only anybody can take it seriously. So that's the reason why Krishna has took the chariot of Arjuna. When Arjuna asked, take my chariot in the middle of the two armies, Krishna took the chariot and make it and stopped it exactly in front of Drona and Bhishma, because Krishna know what is the heart of Arjuna, how much he loves Drona and Bhishma, how much he respects him. And Arjuna actually in the beginning he thought, okay, by seeing the enemies, I will become more and more fierce, and I will become out of that. Like in order to fight, you need anger. So if I go and see my enemies, then my anger will increase, and then I will be able to fight better. That might be Arjuna's thinking, but Krishna's plan was different. He wants to show all the weaknesses of Arjuna right in the beginning of the battle, so that this incident doesn't repeat when the war is going on at full scale. Like for example, Bhishma is trying to kill Arjuna, and Arjuna is not fighting to the fullest of his extent, fullest of his powers. Then Arjuna will get harmed, or either in the worst case Arjuna gets killed also. So Krishna wants to address all these problems in the beginning only. So there are many reasons, like it is said that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Through his one action, he accomplishes many things. First thing is, he wants to show that he is Bhakta Vatsala, my devotee. He is very submissive to the devotee. Arjuna is commanding to Krishna. Krishna, take my chariot in the middle of the armies. And Krishna is, as an obedient servant, he said, okay, and then he is taking. And then secondly is, he wants to give the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita right in the beginning of the battlefield, which will be beneficial for the entire humanity. And third reason is, he wants to address the weaknesses of Arjuna right in the beginning of the battle, so that these weaknesses will not hinder, or these weaknesses doesn't become obstacles right in the middle of battle. So there are multiple reasons also. So when Arjuna saw the enemy, his relatives and friends in the opposite party, and he actually started depressing, he got depressed actually. He went into confusion. So, and why this confusion arises? Because indecision arises because of lack of proper knowledge. Means, see, if somebody doesn't know anything about anything, that for that kind of person, no confusion arises at any point of time. He will be simply lead his life just like animal. Because just like if you see in a college or school, a very well educated person, like a topper of the class, he doesn't have any anxiety, because he is well prepared, and he has done all homework, and he has studied well, and he has no anxiety in an exam or anything. And the student who is very careless, he doesn't care about his studies, he will also be free from anxiety, because he knows that and anyhow I'm not going to get any education. I don't bother about all these studying and exams and work, homework and all the assignments. So he just leaves it off. So, but the persons who are in the middle, who don't have that skills, who don't have the ability to learn everything or perform very well, and also who cannot afford to to admit the defeat, means like if that middle class people, like richest will have no problem, the poorest will have no problem, only the middle class generation, they want to maintain the standards, and but they cannot meet that level, so they will be in constant anxiety. In the same way, when we have full knowledge, that kind of person have no problem, because he knows how to handle everything, he knows how to deal with everything. And if a person doesn't know anything, like a total ignorant, he also has no problem, because he doesn't care about anything, he just leads his life like animal. So the point here is, like, we by birth will not have this knowledge. This knowledge has to be acquired through parampara, or from guidance of guru or sadhu and shastras. And this anxiety also comes due to the lack of knowledge of what is permanent and what is temporary. Like if something is like if we see many men and women these days, they take so much anxiety for something which is very insignificant, which is like not much value. It doesn't have a long-term effect, long-term what you call durability in their life. Something like their position in the society, like in the college or in a job or something like that. They worry so much, or like what people will think. So that kind of things, which is permanent. They actually worry about the temporary situations, or temporary prestige, temporary happiness, or temporary things, but they don't know what is permanent and what is temporary. Any decision that is made on the materialistic level it's only temporary. At most, it can last up to one lifetime. If you don't have the knowledge of what is permanent and what is temporary, what is long lasting, what is perishing, then we cannot make very mature decisions. Okay. So, and also anything happens in our life, like if you don't have full knowledge, if you are not under the guidance of a bona fide authority, then you will only see only very few factors. Some failure happened, then like or breakup of a relationship, or unsuccessful in business, or stress at work. So then we will think only on certain level. Okay, or like there are many factors contributing, even though on different levels, and it might be on spiritual level, it might be on mental level, it might be on physical level. Physical level pains and pleasures that can be sensed even by the animals, but on the emotional level, mental level, or spiritual level, that level cannot be easily recognized unless we have purity of the mind, or unless we have clear in our thinking and living. And also like knowing about the distinction between the essential and detail. For example, if somebody has to do somebody has assigned a like somebody is doing some service, like for example, either it can be spiritual or material. Okay, what is the essence in that service, and what is the detail? Essence means what is the most important, that is to be taken into consideration, and what are the details? Details are only kind of supportive to the essence. So like for example, okay, I'm trying to get a right example. So if a patient goes to the doctor, getting treated by the doctor, and getting good treatment from the doctor and being following the right medications for the right amount of time is that is essential responsibilities of the patient, and essential and the details are how hospital treats you, how hospital looks like, these are details. Means I'm just giving a rough example. I'm not able to recall the proper example right now. So that's kind of means there is essence thing. There is a detail in every aspect. Means if you go to the temple or do worship or do meditation, essence is to attain the higher spiritual consciousness, and detail is how we are following it, like that. So but it is said that attention to the details is the sign of love, that is also to be followed. So and also when something we are doing something and we come to the point of like as in the previous class I discussed, right, there is always the higher principle and lower principles. When we are come to the point of indecision, just like Arjuna, he has to know what is the higher dharma and lower dharma. So it all depends, like for all decisions, like immaturity and what to be done or what not to be done, what is permanent and what is temporary, what are different factors affecting in every situation, and distinction between what is essence and what is details, and what is higher principle and what is lower principle. So all these things needs good amount of knowledge. So through our experience, through our living with our present conditions, we might have got certain amount of knowledge and experience, which sometimes in certain situations of our life might not be sufficient enough to address the situation, because we may run into some problem. For example, if you like if a person came to a foreign country, like for somebody came from India to United States, and driving rules here are way different than driving rules there. So he suddenly met with an accident, and if he met with an accident, then he has to know what is the procedure, whom to report and how to contact and how to claim insurance and everything like that. So a procedure is there for everything. Means so if we have proper knowledge, we will be able to make proper decisions in each and every aspect, even if it's material or spiritual. So what I mean to say is, for all these scenarios to be taken right in right decision at the right moment, with the right attitude, then we need higher knowledge of anything, either material spiritual or material education, material well-being, or spiritual progress, or spiritual making spiritual decisions. All needs a experienced person, more experienced than. That's why in the olden ages, mother, father, elder brother, sisters, and all relatives used to live in one combined family. So if any problem comes, then everybody used to address for the sake of the another person in the family. Those they used to act as a guru, they used to act as a guide, they used to act as a relative. So they used to have a lot of support. Now, but nowadays everybody is dispersed. Mother and father is in some other city, and brother is in some other cities, and every member of the family is in different countries also. So, and also it is said that there is a family or friends can only give knowledge up to certain level. But if one wants to attain the higher and higher knowledge regarding anything or any skill or anything like spirituality, they need to approach a guru to whom they can actually surrender, and to whom they can they can actually learn higher and higher knowledge. That we will discuss later on. So I hope I'm able to make some sense. Like I'm only describing about different ways and different factors this point of indecision comes into our life. Okay, and let us move into Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. So that was a short introduction about the today's topic. So now what happened? The discussion between Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra is happening, and Sanjaya was explaining the situation where Arjuna is talking to Krishna, and Arjuna being very indecisive and confused, and he was totally under the influence of weakness of his heart. And the shloka says, Sanjaya uvacha tam tata krupaya Vishnu tam tata krupaya Vishnu mashru purna kulekshanam vishidantam Vishidantamidam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana. Sanjaya said, Madhusudana spoke these words to Arjuna, whose eyes were filled with the tears and who was overcome with compassion. So Arjuna, he was powerful and he could have, there is no battle, like a war is not a big deal for him, but his mind, his weakness of heart is due to compassion and other things. Okay. So then what happened? Like Lord Krishna said, no, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kasmalamidam Vishame Samupastitam Anarya Justam Asvargyam Akirti Karam Arjuna. So basically in those days, there is a like Aryans are somebody who is well trained in the Vedic culture under the bona fide guru, bona fide spiritual master. But nowadays the historians actually they actually gave different meaning to the Aryans. So somebody is very cultured is called Aryan, but is called a Aryan. So Krishna is saying this behavior of you doesn't suit you because you are a Arya. You are coming from a very respectable family. You are an Arya, and it will how come this bewilderment come upon you? Which is contrary to liberation. Means, see, like in the Vedic culture, it is said that all the activities should be directed to elevate us spiritually. That's why if you see the sometimes these there are very strict rules and regulations people used to follow. If we follow, our Kali Yuga body cannot actually withstand that kind of rules and regulations. The amount of tapasya they do, the physical or mental ability they have, and they were able to handle many tough situations only for the sake of spiritual advancement. And Krishna is saying this is contrary to liberation and prohibits Swarga in the next life. And also, if it is said that if one performs pious activities, if one leads his life according to Shastras, Shastric injunctions, he will be promoted to Swarga, the heavenly planets. And also, Krishna is saying this mentality of yours is not going to give you Swarga, or it's not going to elevate you spiritually. But it will be the cause of infamy in this life. Why? Because if all the relatives are the opponents of Arjuna, if Arjuna gives up this battle, they will not think that, oh, Arjuna was very compassionate, he was very concerned about his relatives and friends. They will think that Arjuna was fearful, seeing such a powerful army or something like that, especially the person like Duryodhana. Duryodhana always, even though there are no fault on the side of Pandavas, Duryodhana always try to see some fault in them and try to show that all the Pandavas are worthless or all the Pandavas are useless, like that. Okay. So Krishna is saying, if you give the battle now, you might be giving up for some kind of, you don't want to disrespect your gurus and your grandfather and other relatives. You might be giving up this battle for the sake of compassion, but it will cause you infamy. It is the need of the hour, because entire of the Pandava army is dependent on Arjuna. Pandavas can fight, but not win without Arjuna. So that's why Krishna is saying, it will be the cause of infamy in this life, but it won't, and also in the next life, it won't give any, it won't give the higher destination. It won't give the Sargaloka, or you won't be promoted to the higher planetary systems. And also it will not even doesn't promote you higher spiritual knowledge, higher spiritual life. Because if you see the sages or great saintly persons, they does very severe tapasya only for only for the sake of purification. When one's heart is purified, then they get higher and higher spiritual realizations. So, but Arjuna's behavior here is very contradictory to that kind of behavior. Very contradictory. So then our Prabhupada writes in this verse, like in this verse, it is said that Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Because if you see in Bhagavad Gita, if Arjuna says something, Arjuna Vacha, Vyasdeva writes Arjuna Vacha. If Sanjaya says something, Sanjaya Vacha. If Dhritarashtra says something, Dhritarashtra Vacha, means Sanjaya said, Dhritarashtra said, Arjuna said, like that. But if Krishna says something, Vyasadeva is writing Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Who is Bhagavan? And Prabhupada writes, defines Bhagavan, the definition of Bhagavan is Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasya Sriya Jnana Vairagya Chaiva Sannam Bhaga Itingana. Bhaga of 6 parts defined. Bhaga means opulence. A person who is opulent, who Aishwaryasya means most opulent in his wealth. Samagrasya means influence. Viryasya, the strength. Yasha means the fame. And Sriya means beauty. And Jnana, knowledge. And Vairagya, and renunciation. The person who is completely perfect in all these 6 opulences means somebody who has controllership, or somebody who has influence, or somebody who has beauty, somebody who has knowledge, or somebody who has renunciation. They are very attractive. Just like we see cinema stars for their beauty. If you see wealthiest persons for like I read it used to be Bill Gates, now someone else, the Tesla owner. So they become famous only because of their wealth, their beauty, or their fame, their like sports star or something. They have fame. And somebody who have renunciation. For example, somebody is proprietor of a lot of things, but he doesn't wants to be always enjoying all those things. He has total renunciation, and he could give up. He can give that up at any moment. So he is not attached. He is also very attractive. That's why the sages, saintly persons are become very famous because of their renunciation. So Bhagavan is a person who is full in his means unlimitedly opulent in all these aspects. Bhaga means wealth, Van means possessor. He has the wealth of 6 kinds, or many kinds, he says, some authors say, but Parasharamani defines only 6 kinds of opulences. So then then the next verse says, Klebhyamasma gamah partha naitat vaya upapadyate shuddham hridaya daurbalyam tyaktostishta parantapa. Krishna is saying, do not be a coward. This is not suitable to you. O son of Pritha, give up this temporary weakness of the mind and prepare for war, O afflictor of enemy. Krishna is indirectly indicating here, this doesn't suitable for you, O son of Pritha, means you are coming from a great royal family. If you give up this battle, you not only not only get infamy, but also you will spoil the reputation of your family. So be very careful. And he is reminding that. See, sometimes like what we do not only reflects us, but also reflects uh, our family or the circle. For example, somebody from uh, from an organization, like he represents, like through his dress, through his behavior, if he represents that organization. For example, like in ISKCON, if a ISKCON devotee goes out and does something which is contradictory, like for example, in ISKCON we don't take intoxication. Intoxication means like no drugs, no alcohol, no coffee, tea, cigarettes, like that. So if like one ISKCON devotee, he was doing book distribution. It was in India. It was very hot summer. Actually, he recently joined into ISKCON, and he wore the dhoti, kurta, and tilak, and all the aspects referring to that. Okay, this person belongs to this society, like that. And due to this, his previous conditioning, he went into a store and he brought a Coca-Cola and he started drinking. And there was a reporter, and that reporter saw him in dhoti kurta and drinking all this what do you call, the soft drink, Coca-Cola or something like that. So then he clicked a photo and he said, he published the photo in the newspaper, saying that these ISKCON devotees are very duplicious. They say that they don't take any intoxications, but this Coca-Cola has caffeine. They say that they don't even take caffeine, but they are. So he wrote a lot of nonsense. So means, like, if you personally do something, it may not only defame you individually, but also defame your organization, defame your family, defame your society. So a person who is respectable or a person who is responsible should always keep that in mind, how he behaves, how he performs, how he acts, so that his actions or his behavior in any situation will not only ruin his reputation or his fame, but also the organization which he belongs to, or the family, or our nation, whatever it is. Okay, so that's why it is said that what we do in specific situations will reflect what we actually do with our life. Means it redefines our path. So, and Krishna is humbly, Krishna is trying to, not humbly, sorry, Krishna is trying to what you call, memorize, or no, or I'm not getting the right term. Krishna is trying to educate Arjuna that no, your family will be, your family reputation will be spoiled. So and Krishna says, this is not the discretion from principles of dharma, nor it is mercy. You are saying that it is adharma to fight, and it is out of mercy. See, Arjuna is showing all these things, symptoms of compassion and mercy and other adharma. But Krishna is saying it is the bewilderment and lamentation which are the indications of weakness of mind. So, like so if somebody is not very powerful, then he will give different reasons if he is not able to perform. So those are the not main reasons, but actually it is due to the weakness of his mind, or weakness of his intellectual, physical abilities. Okay, so therefore Krishna is saying, give up this weakness of mind, and arise and rise up. And Krishna is trying to encourage so that Arjuna will take up to his duty. And Arjuna said, "O Madhusudana, killer of enemies, How will I fight with the arrows in the battle against the Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship? So, and he actually opened up his heart to Krishna, say like because that was the actual reason for which Arjuna has developed the weakness of the heart. So, and Arjuna says it is better to eat by begging in this life, not killing such a great elders. Having killed the elders who were even desiring, who were even desiring wealth, I will enjoy. Sorry, I will enjoy objects contaminated with their blood. You know? So he's saying, if I fight with my elders and destroy them, if anything that is going to enjoy will be tainted with the blood of my elders. Means it will constantly remember of their death, and I cannot be able to enjoy. Means he's putting the another point that his enjoyment factor in the friends. Okay, and he says he totally now comes to this indecision. He says, nor we do not know which is better. Which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them? If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us in the battlefield. So he's saying killing of sons of Dhritarashtra is okay. We don't care about killing sons of Dhritarashtra, but because they're already challenging us. As per the Vedic scriptures, it is adharma to kill any living entity. But even the scriptures also gives the permission to kill somebody, especially in the Kshatriya. When a Kshatriya is challenged by any person, then according to scriptures, Kshatriya will have the right to kill that person, because Kshatriyas are by nature, they are very ferocious and they cannot tolerate any kind of insults. So because Arjuna is saying, even if we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, it doesn't matter. But what about the respectable personalities who is going to fight on their side? So then Arjuna realizes that like what I'm speaking doesn't make sense. And he quote this verse. The verse says, Karpanya dosha pahata svabhava prachami tvam dharma samuda chetaha yasreshan nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyaste ham shadi mam tvam prapannam. So my nature of fighting has been overcome by the lack of understanding of Brahman. My mind is bewildered about dharma. I therefore ask you, what is best for me? Please tell me with certainty. With certainty, I am your student. Please instruct me. Please instruct me who have surrendered to you. So he finally realized that what I'm speaking or what I'm thinking doesn't make any sense. Like these all things didn't come up when I was at home preparing for the battle. Now in front of the battle, I'm getting all these things, and I strongly feel that this is a very stupid decision to give the battle right now. But these doubts are haunting me. So please clear my doubts, and so that I can be logically convinced that I'm not doing something wrong. That's what he puts his indecision in front of Krishna, and he accepts Krishna as his guru. As he says, I am surrendering unto you. So this surrender is a very vital thing. Surrender means my decision doesn't matter at all. Whatever you decide, I'm going to do that. That is called surrender. Surrender means like completely agreeing the person on the authority, on the level of authority. So that's why, like some kings, when they conquer some other kingdom, the defeated king will surrender to the king who has won. Means my rules and regulations doesn't matter anymore. Means whatever the rules that I set in the kingdom are gone. Now I'm surrendering unto you. Whatever you say, I'm going to implement that. Because when we surrender to somebody, means we are agreeing totally without any questioning, without any complaint, without any deviation from their decision. So that's what Arjuna is saying, because Arjuna has full confidence on Krishna that he is his well-wisher, and Krishna has all the knowledge. Krishna knows perfectly what is right and what is wrong. With that confidence, Arjuna is surrendering unto the Krishna, so that he can do what is beneficial for everyone. So this is the nature of a intelligent disciple or intelligent person, to recognize who is the worthy person to surrender. And when in the times of indecision, we have to take guidance from a exalted personality who is actually has the ability to guide us in that situations. And Arjuna says, I do not see who can remove this sorrow which is drying my senses, or which is drying up my senses. Even if I attain an unrivaled prosperous kingdom on earth, or even sovereignty over the devas, means even if I get the wealth of heavenly planets, or the earthly planet, I do not see any scope that this sorrow will go away. So, and then basically until this point of time, Arjuna was very depressed and is about to give up the battle, and which if he does, if he gives up the battle, his entire reputation is gone. He will be called coward, and this entire his party will be defeated in the battlefield. So by surrendering unto Krishna, Arjuna develops the new he redefines his role as a Kshatriya. So by taking guidance from a authorized guru, who is like Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Krishna is the guru of entire creation. So how can you say Krishna is a guru? Krishna in the form of Krishna is Bhagavan. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So if you see a person like on the road, or any person who doesn't have a guru, or even if you take an animal, the experience is the best guru. Why it is experience is the best guru? Because when when the animal or any person who is uneducated, if he tries something and he gets the pains and pleasures or inconvenience through that act, then immediately it will be registered in the mind. And when the similar situation arises in our to that person or living entity, then immediately the intelligence comes from within. Oh, we have tried this previously and we have suffered. Don't do that again. Don't do that mistake again. Means there is Chetana, there is Paramatma. So that's why it is said that experience is the best teacher. So this experience comes through the memory, means somebody who is memorizing this thing. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hrudi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha, means everything comes from me. Smriti means the remembrance, apohanam means forgetfulness. Both are coming from me only. So as long as Krishna is present in the heart of a living entity, that living entity, the soul will stay in that body, and the soul will have the ability to recall its experiences, the jnanam, and the remembrance power to memorize, the memory power will come. So in that way, Krishna is Jagat Guru, and also Krishna is Jagat Guru because he knows what to give to whom. Because an expert guru knows how to train a disciple. So in the same way, Krishna knows how to bring us up from a degraded life to highly advanced life if we surrender unto him. So that's why now Arjuna has surrendered unto Krishna. Now Sanjay is Sanjay is saying to Dhritarashtra, Sanjay has said, having thus spoken to Hrishikesha or Gudakesha, the afflictor of the enemies, telling Govinda, I will not fight, he becomes silent. So Arjuna became silent after saying that I am not going to fight this war, like that, saying that. He surrendered unto Krishna and then he said, okay. Then Rishikesha smilingly, slightly spoke these words to the depressed Arjuna in the midst of the two armies. Then after Arjuna gave up this, his what you call, his thinking and his decision making, and he realized that he is helpless, he is not able to decide what is good and what is bad. Then he just surrendered unto the Krishna as accepting him as a guru, and then he became silent. When we surrender unto a bona fide spiritual master, then we should actually give our freedom or give our independence, uh, put our put ourselves in the hands of a guru who is our well-wisher. Guru is, the definition of a guru is, he is a friend, philosopher and guide. He is a friend. He knows what is best for us, and he is a philosopher. He knows philosophically what is dharma and what is dharma, and he is a guide. He will guide us through any situation, how to act, so that you will not be degraded, or you will become exalted spiritually and materially. No, not materially, maybe spiritually. So so let us discuss the topic of a guru. How to accept a guru. Guru always addresses like ignorance of a disciple. Okay, like unless one accept a guru, unless one surrenders, then only the guru factor will start acting on it. Just like unless a patient surrenders unto the surgeon or a doctor, then only doctor can give or help that patient. Like if some doctor has to cut the body part and take the impurities out and stitch the body, that basically that patient is putting his body in front of doctor and doing nothing. Doctor even has a chance, he can you may kill me or you may save me, whatever you want you can do. I am fully surrendered unto you. That is the mentality of the patient in front of the doctor. He literally surrenders his body to the doctor. So in the same way, here Arjuna is giving up all his ideas and not blindly, decisively, with full conviction, he is surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of God by accepting him as a guru, by accepting Krishna as his guru. So for in our lives, if you want to spiritual guidance, if you want to progress spiritually, see why we are addressing spiritually, not materially or not mentally or emotionally. Because see, spirituality is something which is deals with the soul. We in the introductory sessions we discussed, right, how the soul is the actual person, and covering the soul is the three layers of mind, intelligence, ego, and covering the mind, intelligence, and ego is the physical body. If any decision that needs to be taken for, like if a decision is taken properly on a spiritual level, it will automatically addresses the needs of mind and body, and it will mainly focuses on the requirements of the soul. But if you take any decision on the material platform, then it will only give sense gratification, it will only give relievement from the physical or pain for certain amount of time, and but eventually this problem will keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. Just like like if a boil happens, they are like sometimes due to heat some boils come up on our faces, or on our skin. Then what we do, if you go for a temporary solution, you take a cream and then rub over it, which will neutralize the boil. But again, that's what is done, then the boil will come in the next spot, and the next spot, and the next spot. Means you have to keep applying the cream every time. But instead, if you address why these boils are coming, this is because of impure blood or too much heat in the body. then you take something which will cool your body or which will purify your blood, then you don't get these boils anymore. So that is like a permanent solution for all the boils. So you don't have to treat boil by boil. So like that, if we address problem only on the material level, it is like if you trying to solve one problem, by the time you finish by the time you finish solving the problem, like two more problems, three more problems, or many problems will arise. You know? For example, if somebody if you don't have money, then he only focuses on earning money, but not on other things, not neglecting family, neglecting his health, neglecting spirituality. Then he may earn money over a period of time, but he will lose his health, he will lose his family, and he will lose his mental balance. So, but if a person starts from the spiritual point of view, and under the bona fide, if he leads life under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, then the spiritual master will tell him how to lead perfect life, taking care of spiritual life, taking care of family life, taking care of material life, and taking care of your body, yourself. So that care and concern or protection is offered on all the levels. No level is neglected. So that's why the pramana, the standard by which we should lead our life is through the guidance of sadhu. Sadhus means the saintly persons. Guru is a person who is very closely related to us. Means is not a relative, but who knows about our life, who knows about our good and bad, or our nature, who can guide us personally. And also Shastras. Shastras are the standard injunctions of the Vedic knowledge, which actually are coming from the beginning of creation. It is said as per the scriptures that it is said that when the God created this material universe, he gave the Shastras, so that by following which the human beings can gradually elevate themselves and get out of this material existence. So one has to follow this, take this guidance from these three sources of knowledge. So there is a little bit, we'll go some more little time. So Guru is one who should have full knowledge of the absolute truth, and Guru must have realized that knowledge, not like theoretical knowledge. He should have the full conviction. Yes, this process works like that. And Guru should know the essence of the scriptures, because whatever we do in our life, it should be followed according to scriptures. Because what is dharma? Dharma means dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Whatever Bhagavan or Krishna has said, that is dharma. So that dharma is given in the Shastras. That dharma is coming in through generations to generations by scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedas, Puranas, Itihasas, Upanishads. They all give the actual dharma, what is, on what principles you should lead your life. So Guru should have full knowledge about what is life and what is life all about, and how to guide the disciple so that his life will be under strictly following the Shastric injunction or following the dharma. And Guru is beyond caste, creed, color, nationality, and other superficial differences. You should never see these differences: caste, color, creed, or nationality. All these are superficial. So Guru is the real qualification is he should have proper knowledge of scriptures. He should know the conclusion of the scriptures, and he should be convinced about the process, and he should know how to guide us in our spiritual life. And who is not a guru is somebody who charges and gives a mantra, and they allow their student to disregard all the regulative principles. They teach yoga simply as a gymnastic, or they maintain that purpose of yoga is material well-being, and they defy the Vedas by declaring I am God, you are God, like that, and everybody is God. So these are all the fake gurus. Like some Baba comes, some Babas in India, They take, okay, you give me 5,000 rupees, then I will give you a mantra, and you chant that mantra, and at the end of your life, you will go to heaven. So they are like fake gurus. Guru never charges money for spiritual guidance, okay? And they allow their student to disregard any regulative principles. Means, like some gurus are there, they say, okay, you come to me and you follow whatever you do whatever you do, and you just be on my, just be my follower, and you live whatever you like. You can drink, you can do illicit sex, you do intoxication, whatever you like, you can do. So there are many gurus like that, okay? And they teach some of them, they teach yoga simply as gymnastic, means like simply for the sake of health, they shows yogas and asanas. See, the spiritual life, the guru is not concerned about the temporary body, but the permanent soul. How to elevate the disciples from this repeated cycle of birth and death, how to give long-lasting solutions for all the problems of life. He is actually guru. But somebody who is actually only addressing the physical well-being, which is temporary, because physical well-being will be lost by the time of death, or it is only lost for very short amount of time. So a bona fide guru doesn't only go on the superficial level, but goes in depth. He wants you to be happy from within and without. Sometimes without might not be superficially, we may say guru's instructions may be difficult and may cause a lot of physical inconvenience, because it means guru is training us for higher purpose. Guru is training us, guru is trying to take us to the next level. So like that. And some fake gurus are, they maintain the purpose of yoga is material well-being. They don't know the actual purpose of yoga. What is yoga? We'll discuss it later in the chapter. Yoga means, yoga comes from the root word yuj. Yuj means reunion. So a fake guru will say yoga, the purpose of yoga is just a happy sex life and happy living and healthy life, so that you can eat, sleep, mate, and defend. So these are all fake gurus. And also they defy the Vedic declarations. Like if a guru rejects any injunctions of the Vedas, he is a fake guru. Some gurus say, okay, you don't have to read Bhagavad Gita, you don't have to read the, you don't have to do accept God. You like God is everywhere. I am God, you are God. Why to look for another God? So basically, this guru, this fake guru, doesn't have any knowledge. He is not convinced that there is a supreme personality of God, there is a Paramatma, there is like somebody who has created all of us, there is a purpose. He doesn't know the purpose behind this creation, and he tries to cheat us by saying that you are God, I am God, everybody is God, like that. So these are all fake gurus. One should not fall trap into the illusions or into these cheatings of that gurus. So if you have any questions or comments, we can discuss now at the end of the session. Hare Krishna. We're able to follow, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Any questions? Nihira is also following. Vishwajit Prabhu. Mata, you have any questions?
No.
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, Sunita Mata, you don't have any questions?
Yeah, no questions.
And Narsima Sharma Prabhu, your doubts are cleared?
I'm getting more doubts, frankly speaking.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Like, okay, the question for me is here, why is the battle actually happening, Prabhuji?
Battle is happening. Why battle is happening?
Yeah.
You attended
I mean,
the first
I
session?
understand that this is because the Pandavas have asked for a piece of land, which is their own. And finally, Duryodhana said, no, I do not want to part with that. And then these Pandavas started fighting. I have come for a fight to get that land, right? Is that right, or am I wrong?
you are partially right. Like you are explaining only on superficial terms, but
No, I talk on because I'm not spiritual yet. I only speak about superficial terms at the moment.
Okay, okay. So
Now,
the thing is, the as per the like basically, it was decided that Pandavas will get half of the kingdom, and half of the kingdom, which is barren part of the land, is given to the Pandavas, and the real like very opulent part of the kingdom was given to Kauravas. But even though Pandavas got the barren land, they by their power and by their hard work, they have made it so opulent that they become more opulent than the Kauravas. Then Kauravas, by cheating the Pandavas in the gambling match, they actually took away the wealth of the Pandavas, and they have again you might have the seen Mahabharata, right?
I have long back, so in my childhood I've seen it.
So they have cheated it, and they have kept that like as per the terms and conditions of the dice match, either you have to go for 13 years of 12 years of exile and 1 year of incognito.
So, Swami, yeah, what you said is right. So basically, it's about a piece of land that they're fighting. So
It's not about a piece of land, it is about their right claim.
their right claim.
You
Yes.
you have some property on your name, right?
No, wait, sir. Let me finish my question. So it is the right claim that they have,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Understood. So basically, then when they said Arjuna has this feeling that, oh, these are my brothers, and Arjuna was having compassion.
Hmm.
Now Krishna went and told,
Hmm.
you please don't do that. You can kill the people, kill your brothers and sisters for
Hmm.
that piece of land. Is that right?
It is
Swami,
not,
I'm not against Krishna or anything. Don't think like that.
Yeah, you're
I'm
correct,
only
you're
trying
correct.
to
You're
see
correct.
what it is. Really.
Your question is okay. I'm answering okay.
Yes, sir.
See,
Yes, Swami.
they are very adharmic. Means they are not dharmic. See, a Kshatriya should be righteous in nature. If he is righteous, means like if you see Lord Rama, he's a Kshatriya, he's a king. There is nobody to question him. But one washerman, he found one fault in Rama, that he actually brought back Sita, who is stayed in others' home. How can he set a model for us like that? So he made that small remark. Now Lord Ram knows that Sita is very pure from the core of his heart. But since he was in the throne of a king, he has to be exemplary for his citizens. That's why he actually sent Sita away from him. So, but in the case of Duryodhana, everybody knows that Pandavas are righteous. So a king's duty is to uphold the dharma. King's duty is to be an exemplary person to the citizens. If king does the dice matches or not, like take away somebody's wealth, somebody's who's hard-earned money, just by cheating them in a dice match, or by insulting them, taking their like by exploiting them, this is injustice.
Yes.
So,
Swami.
wait, no, let me complete. Okay, now you are saying that okay, that Arjuna is ready to tolerate all those things and give up his like whatever injustice he has gone through, and just he wants to renounce and go away from the war. But why Krishna is encouraging him to fight? Because see, Krishna comes for two reasons: Pavitranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam. Just cha dushkrutam means he wants to give protection to the sadhus, and he wants to punish the miscreants. See, a demoniac person can also rule the kingdom, and a saintly person also can rule the kingdom. See, for example, I will tell you one. If a responsible person rules a kingdom, then he will act for the real benefit of the citizens or real benefit of his followers. But if a demoniac person rules the kingdom, he will only addresses the material problem, material enjoyment. Means just like if like for example, Ravana is there. In the kingdom of Ravana, every person, he will have no illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. And they don't understand the purpose of what is the purpose of life. You are only seeing this problem in a material terms. Like, oh, why is killing? Why Arjuna? Why Krishna is saying to Arjuna to kill the Kauravas? Because Kauravas are adharmic in nature. They only want to expand their kingdom. They only want to enjoy the kingdom, but they don't want to be responsible. You know, right? See, if a father is there, father should behave responsibly. Not like, okay, I will just give money to my son. He may actually study, not study. He may behave responsibly or not. It doesn't matter. As long as I have money, I will just eat, sleep, and be merry. And my son also will do that. No, it doesn't happen like that. Your son or you yourself will not stop from eating, sleeping, and being happy with your life. You will have the influence. You will try to like your senses are so like not only your senses, anybody's senses which are uncontrolled or which are not bound by principles, they will lead to ruination. You take the example of Ravana. Ravana has thousands of wives, but still he wants somebody's wives. Means he is not satisfied within, and due to his activities, someone else is losing his wife, and somebody's family life is ruined. So like that, these demonic people, this is Duryodhana and party is a demonic in nature. They want to usurp others' kingdom. They want to cheat Pandavas. They want to like to what extent they're disturbing Pandavas, insulting Pandavas. Why so much injustice they perform to the Pandavas? And not only Pandavas, they are demonic in nature. They don't know the real what is the real purpose of life. Like if if a student goes to college, our parents paid the fees, and if a student goes there and he just don't do study and don't do any education, is it the responsibility of a teacher to correct him or punish him and bring to the right path, or just leaving, okay, he paid his fees and he just let it be like that, we just tolerate him like that? It is not like that. See, Krishna is Jagat Guru. He is actually thinking about Duryodhana as much as he is thinking about Arjuna. By punishing Duryodhana now, he is actually giving the higher destination to Duryodhana. If Duryodhana leads life like that and he dies, then he will be promoted. He will be going to the hell, and he has to take birth in a very hellish conditions, and he will be even demoted to the animalistic life. See, like that is acting in knowledge and acting in ignorance matters. Okay, you understand my point, right?
But that was not my question, Guruji, because you want to talk, I just stop it. My question was, if in these days, just think if my brother is doing something wrong, what does Krishna tell to me now?
What does
Krishna tell to me if Krishna is there at these times? What does Krishna tell me? Does he ask me to kill my brother, or say, no, don't go ahead? Or what exactly will he tell to me? Does he tell the same thing to me? If my brother says, okay, he's not going to part with the property that my father gave me.
This question came previously and you only asked and you only gave me, right? Samadana, Beda, Danda. You only told me, right? These things. So Krishna tried everything, Baba. I already answered your question.
If you already told, that's fine, Swami.
So
Thank you.
The thing is, you have to understand, you have to read deeply. Otherwise, if you see Krishna as somebody like who doesn't have any knowledge, or if you judge Krishna on superficial level, then you will be able to come to repeatedly same thing again and again.
Okay, so understood, Swami.
I already explained, right? He tried. Krishna tried with Sama, Dana, Beda, and finally he came to Danda. When it comes to Danda, it is the responsibility of Arjuna to punish the Kauravas, but Arjuna was not willing to do that. His punishment is even for the benefit of Kauravas, so that Kauravas, even the Duryodhana, they will get a better life in their next life. You understand, right? Why, like a prisoner gets punishment from the king? When a prisoner gets punishment from the king, his punishment that he has to get in the hellish in the hell will be reduced. Why? Because he already got the punishment from the king. You understand, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
If you have it violation, like no, you don't, your headlight is not working, what you are driving, and one traffic constable gave a ticket, and not give a ticket, he gave a warning and saying that okay, you have to fix your headlight by this date, and you are still driving, and another cop comes on a critical scenario and then stops you, and he is planning to give a ticket. Then what will you say? So I already got a ticket. This is my warning ticket. I'm going to fix my light by this date. You will show him to him. Then that person will not give you a ticket. So in the same way, the Duryodhana and other party being killed in front of Krishna, they will get higher destinations. So like no, it's not like your brother is doing wrong. Krishna will not tell you to kill your brother. No, it's not like that. Krishna will tell you if it is good for him. Like you will try to educate him, you will try to send his representative, you will educate him, you will try to, Krishna is the, no, you should not judge Krishna like that, but if you want, you can have a discussion, I will tell you, explain clearly. He tried everything, right? You recall, right, what I have previously said to you?
Yes,
He came as a messenger and he tried everything, the Sama, Dana, Beda, and finally he came to Danda. He actually came to the point like you just give 5 villages to them and they will live by themselves, but they are not willing to listen. And they are doing other man. They are not doing, like they are supposed to give half of their kingdom, actually full kingdom, because who was the king? Maharaj Pandu was the king, and Yudhishthira was his eldest son, and Yudhishthira should be the king of entire kingdom, actually as per that Vedic culture, rules and regulations, and as per the qualifications, Yudhishthira should be king, because Yudhishthira has all the qualification to be a king, but not Duryodhana. But even though they have partitioned the king, and but still they cheated the Pandavas. So basically, the devotees has the ability to tolerate the injustices, but Krishna will only tolerate to certain extent. So even if Krishna punishes the demoniac people, it is for their well-being. That you should understand. It is like killing means they, like anyhow they are going to die in future, but if they die now in the front of Krishna in the Kurukshetra, they will get in higher destinations. And also nice dharmic rule will be maintained on the earthly planet. So that is the purpose why Krishna comes into this material world. If a person's like Saddam Hussein or Obama bin Laden, who will kill anybody or anybody, you want to kill that persons, or you want to just they are staying safely, or why are you telling them to kill them? Will you do that? No. If you are rightful, like a Kshatriya will definitely kill such kind of person.
No, it's the dharma at that time.
Yeah, dharma, right? It is the dharma.
It's at that time the dharma is basically to kill the person, and possibly at this time the dharma could be going to a court.
Dharma has to be established by any means.
Probably the Kaliuga dharma at this time probably would be going to the court rather than killing.
Yeah, yes. Because they are,
so that's what,
they are the ultimate authority there. That point of time.
Yeah, understood.
There is no point. There is no higher authority. Arjuna cannot go to any court because they are the kings. They are the if anyone.
Yeah, it was at that time that was the dharma, and this time this is the dharma. Now we cannot go and kill. This is not the time to kill.
Yes.
Yeah, understood, Swami.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any more questions?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, we'll end it here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.